It was safe to say Saints Row was a success, being the only open world crime sandbox game on the 7th generation of consoles for a few years. It meant that they had most of the share of the market, but in 2008 something big happened. Volition had a decision to make. They could either try and compete with GTA with its gameplay, graphics, visuals and storytelling, or they could break away from the GTA clone mould and make their own path of sandbox mayhem and fun. It's safe to say they made the right choice. Hello and welcome back to the channel, and yes, I know it's been quite a while since my last proper upload. It's been about 3 or 4 weeks, but I'm finally back with Saints Row 2. Now, one of the main reasons this video has taken so long to make is because I consider Saints Row 2 one of my favourite games of all time, and when there's a game I consider one of my favourites, like in the past Tekken 4 and Half-Life 2, the videos take a bit longer because I take so much more time writing the script, reviewing what I've written in the script, making sure everything's the best it can be to try and get my point across why this is one of my favourite games of all time. Now, I'm not going to keep this intro too long because the video is already quite long, so yeah, there's nothing else to say. Thank you for being so patient, and yeah, let's get straight in to Saints Row 2. The first Saints Row game was a massive success on the Xbox 360, with some decent review scores and sales that went over even THQ's expectations. It was no doubt that the series was here to stay, but before they started work on the sequel, Volition and some other dev teams started to work on ports of the first game for the PS3 and also the Nintendo Wii. But thanks to the success of Saints Row 1, THQ and Volition decided to scrap the ports, instead deciding to work on the sequel. They started to work on it before the first game even released, but it was clear that the series would thrive on both the PS3 and the 360 after the success of the first game, which meant the second game in the series would release a little over 2 years after the original. But Saints Row 2 wouldn't be the only open world sandbox game releasing that year, because of course we saw the release of GTA 4. Now, I don't really want to keep comparing the two franchises, as they both take very different paths, but considering one of Saints Row 2's ad campaigns was literally mocking GTA 4, I feel like I needed to bring it up.
Would you rather go bowling or steal a septic truck and spray loads of sewage on pedestrians?
It makes it clear as well just how different the two games were becoming, with GTA having a more realistic and gritty approach, whereas Saints Row, well, it became Saints Row. And in October of 2008, we'd finally get to play Saints Row 2 on the Xbox 360 and PS3, and on PC in 2009. But we won't talk about the PC version.
Now we know you're out there doing those other things right now, and that's fine. But when you're done, we'll be right here, doing some crazy
Before I start talking about the story in Saints Row 2, I think it's time for a bit of a recap of the first game. After your character joins the Saints, you help take out the 3 main gangs in Stilwater, these being the Los Carnales.
It's not the Los Carnales. Jesus, what's wrong with you?
Vice Kings and West Side Rollers. Even though you're successful in taking over the whole city, there are some casualties along the way, mainly Lynn being killed in the Rollers campaign, and Lynn is a great character in most of the sequels as well. Yeah, I may have lied about that one. But once the city is under complete control of the Saints, Julius gets arrested, which forces the players to carry out missions for the Chief of Police and a man named Richard Hughes, who's running for Mayor of Stilwater. These missions include you taking out the current Mayor and various other tasks. Once you've done the Hughes dirty work, he invites you onto his yacht, where he reveals that he's going to kill the player and arrest the rest of the Saints. That is until this happens.
Right to the point.
Yo, can you speed this shit up? I want to go to Freckle Bitches.
You're going to die here, son. Make no mistake about that. But if it makes it any easier on you, I'll be sure to thank you in my acceptance speech. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a party to...
We also see shots of other characters looking a bit nervous and checking times, seemingly giving off the impression that any one of these characters from the story planted the bomb to kill the player, as we watch the boat burning down as the credits roll. The second game starts in prison, with the player waking up from a coma with no sense of how much time has passed. You're greeted by a man named Carlos, who gets himself stabbed just to speak to you. A bit desperate, are we, lad? He helps you break out of the prison, which is surprisingly easy. Except for the first NPC, he beat the absolute shit out of me. But once you escape and make it back to Stilwater, Carlos lets you know what's been going on, I could explain it, but I'm too lazy, so Carlos, take it away.
Where can I find the other saints?
What other saints?
What you talking about?
Without anyone to lead them, the saints fell apart. Once the Brotherhood, Ronin, and Samdi showed up, the few that were left dropped their flags before they got killed.
Well, that's fucking great.
Once you grab a beer and cause a massive brawl,
Hey, Barry, turn this shit off!
Yeah, I was watching that.
I guess you're not anymore, are you, bitch?
Could you turn the TV back on?
you know, standard activities in the Saints Row universe, you find out Johnny Gat is on death row and decide to break him out of court, which is just as easy as it was to break out of the prison earlier.
I'm curious if you can keep your cavalier attitude when 2,000 volts are running through your body.
Oh yeah? And I'm curious if you can keep acting like a douchebag when I shove that gavel up your ass.
My client would like that stricken from the record.
What's that?
Drop it.
Anyone hit and need a lawyer?
Shit. About time your burnt ass woke up.
You okay, Johnny?
Yeah, aside from almost getting sent to the chair, I'm fucking great.
Jesus, no wonder why these gangs keep cropping up. Once you set yourself back up in, well...
So, what'd you think?
It's kind of a shithole.
You set up your own lieutenants as the new leader of the 3rd Street Saints to take on the 3 new gangs, these being the Sons of Samdi, who take the place of the Rollers from the first game. They're involved in mainly selling drugs and a bit of voodoo, thanks to this creepy bastard called Mr. Sunshine.
Yo, can you cut that shit out? You're freaking me out.
Then there's the Brotherhood. They've taken the place of the Carnalas down south. They're a bit rednecky, if that's even a word, and they're f***ing c***s. And then last but not least, the Ronin. The best way to describe them is they look like a group of people who have beef with John Wick. They're also f***ing c***s. I personally think the 3 gangs this time around are a lot better than in the first game. Each one has a distinct look, vehicles and even fighting styles, and they're a lot more ruthless, which makes these gangs, their bosses and lieutenants a lot more memorable. One thing I wanted to bring up about Saints Row 2's story is how dark it can be at times. For a game where you spend most of the time doing stuff like this, the game actually has a pretty compelling story. There's 2 examples I'm going to give, but they do contain spoilers, so I'll skip to this part of the video if you don't want to hear them. The first one I'm going to talk about is in the Ronin campaign. After a few missions, the Saints cause enough trouble for the Ronin to get personal. They break into Johnny Gat's house and hold his girlfriend Aisha hostage. She was a character in the first game, but I don't think I mentioned her in that video. As the player and Johnny get back to the house, Aisha is killed by Janucci, the lieutenant of the Ronin. A quick fight then takes place where Johnny gets injured. A few missions later, it's time for Aisha's funeral, which is interrupted by the young, arrogant leader of the Ronin, Shogo Akuji, trying to take out the player and Johnny. Obviously this doesn't go to plan and he gets caught, and then this happens.
I'm sorry.
Well, that brings her back, doesn't it? You couldn't even let her have a burial, you fucking piece of shit.
No, please. No.
Kill me, but don't do this. Just kill me, damn it. Don't do this.
Jesus man, that took a dark turn. I was car surfing naked while listening to Africa by Toto 10 minutes ago. But yeah, it just goes to show how ruthless the gangs are in this game compared to the last. And then there's the mission Red Asphalt. This takes place in the Brotherhood campaign and revolves around Carlos. Carlos is the character who breaks the player out of prison and later on becomes one of the 3 lieutenants under the boss. And while Shandy and Piers are always messing up and causing more problems, Carlos is the one who gets things done without too much to say back. It's obvious the boss sees themselves in Carlos and definitely wants to take him under their wing. That is until the boss gets this phone call.
Since you were nice enough to give my man a makeover, I should return the favor. Don't worry, by the time we're through with him, Carlos will look just as handsome as Mara.
Listen up, you fucking bitch.
Of course, I don't have access to the same materials you did, but you know, I figure we can make do.
When I find you...
I'm sure you'll do something scary. Do me a favor, when you're scraping up your buddy's face, just remember, Nero gave you a chance to be his partner.
You then chase a truck around the city with Carlos's body being flung across the street until you get it to stop, but by then it's too late. Carlos is probably going to die from the injury, so the boss decides to end it rather than watching him suffer. Jesus man, this took a dark turn. I was flinging shit at pedestrians from a septic truck while listening to Africa by Toto 10 minutes ago. And similar to the Ronin campaign, the boss gets revenge by, well, kidnapping the girlfriend of the Brotherhood's leader, putting her in the boot of a car, and then leaving said car in a line of cars that gets destroyed by, well, the leader of the Brotherhood, killing her in the process. Jesus man, this took a dark turn. I was base jumping from rooftops dressed as a hot dog while listening to Africa by Toto 10 minutes ago. Jesus Christ, when did you get back? I heard you've got some incriminating footage of me. Hold on, what are you talking about? It's Saints Row 2, it's the footage from the game. Oh, oh, what did you even get up to? Yeah, you know, me and Bob the Drink just chill by the beach, having some chilled, nice cold mustardos. That's Spanish for mustard, by the way. Okay, yeah, I don't think it is, but I'm going to take your word for it. So there's no footage of me or Big Bob doing anything incriminating? You behave yourself, because I'm a bit worried about what footage I might have had. So yeah, you lay low for a while. I don't know what you've been up to. Alright, I'm sorry for bothering you. I'll leave you to it. Goodbye, or ciao, as they say in Spanish. Haha. Ciao. Alright then. See you later. The reasons why I've brought these examples up is to show basically how this game full of ridiculous side missions, funny costumes and pun-filled clothing stores can actually take itself seriously, and it's not jarring at all, it fits perfect. And I think that's down to the way the developers and writers crafted the characters, who in 1 minute can be cracking jokes and the next be absolutely ruthless in the way they deal with their enemies. And it makes sense, they're in a gang. After this, how do you expect them to act? I just hope, if they ever reboot the series, the game has the same balance to actually want us to get behind the characters' motives and actions.
Oh, friend! Oh, new friend! Oh, friend! Please be my friend! Oh, friend!
But yeah, to conclude, Saints Row 2's story didn't have to go this hard. It could have just been another generic open world crime game, but instead it gave us a pretty compelling story with some well written characters and again a star-studded voice cast. I mean, I've got Neil Patrick Harris playing a pothead drug dealing DJ, for Christ's sake.
I don't know what.
Stop lying.
Dude, I said I don't.
And he said, stop lying.
Okay, it's time to talk about the gameplay, and to be honest, there aren't many changes from the first game, but the changes that have been made are good changes, and some, in my opinion, are bad. Let's start with the on-foot gameplay. It's very similar to the way the first game feels. The shooting feels the same, still no cover shooting, and you still use Big Macs to recover health, but there's a few changes. Firstly, you can aim down sights to give you better chances at hitting enemies further away, and there's also a new melee combat system, allowing you to hit enemies with finishers after successfully hitting them 3 times, and also the ability to pick up things to use as weapons, like bar stools and trash cans.
Oh, you got me! A trash man!
Which I'm going to be honest, I never used outside the Fight Club activity. You can also use NPCs as human shields to protect you from incoming bullets, or, you know, just to launch them across the street. They're not big changes, but still great additions nonetheless. Then there's the driving, and I've got to be honest, the driving feels a bit worse this time around. I don't know what they've done, but everything feels a bit more floaty, like there's less gravity. It's not the best, but still, it's not the worst driving I've seen. There's also the addition of cruise control, which lets you set the vehicle you're driving to a certain speed, so you can concentrate on shooting, which is a great addition. To be honest with you, not much has changed in terms of the core gameplay from the first game, but they added some little things here and there to make the game a lot more fun to play. Now in terms of how the game looks and performs, just like the gameplay, there's a few good and a few bad points to be made. First up, all those horrible pop-ins that were present in the first game aren't nearly as noticeable this time around, and the game seems a lot smoother as well. But my only problem with it is this weird yellow tinge the game seems to have. It also suffers from that depressing look a lot of games in 2008 suffer from, where in an attempt to make things look more realistic, everything is just grey and depressing. So for me personally, I think the first game looks miles better, but Saints Row 2 still runs a whole lot better than its predecessor. Overall, the gameplay hasn't changed too much, and some of the changes can be seen as negatives, but it's still a fun game to play all these years later, even if the game look-wise has aged like a month-old bottle of milk. So then, activities, strongholds and missions. Well, not a lot's changed on the gameplay side of things, but the changes the developers have made are definitely welcome ones. Let's start with the activities. Almost all activities return from the first game, with the exception of hijacking, but 6 new ones were added also. these being Fight Club, Fuzz, Trailblazer, Septic Avenger, Heli Assault and Crowd Control. They all added something different and definitely helped playing through the activities feel like less of a chore. So however I went from not wanting to play these in the first game to one of my saves in the second game having half the activities completed, well, there's a few reasons. The first being that all of the activities are incredibly fun to play, especially some of the new ones like Fuzz, which is a parody of the TV show Cops, which sees you dressed as a cop followed by a cameraman using some of that good old fashioned American reasonable force. This activity in particular is a perfect example of the developers just having fun with the world of Saints Row 2. Same with things like Crowd Control, where you play as a celebrity's bodyguard and get rid of crazy fans in the most ridiculous ways possible. I can't speak about all the activities, but trust me when I say you'll have a lot of fun going through them all. Each activity also only has 2 locations on the map with 6 levels on each one, meaning there isn't an oversaturation of the same 3 activities like there were in the first game. You can also keep track of the activity progress by just hovering over the icon on the map to see which ones you've started and which ones you haven't. And activities like Insurance Fraud and Mayhem are now a lot easier to play thanks to more cars and NPCs spawning in. And now in Insurance Fraud you can launch yourself into the sky to get some crazy combos and get through the levels a lot easier than in the previous version. Just another example of the game not taking itself too seriously paying off. The rewards are great as well. For example, completing the snatch activity located downtown gives you unlimited SMG ammo. Pair that with a dual welding Tech 9s and you're basically unstoppable. Honestly, if I was just playing Saints Row 2 in my spare time, I would have just ran through all the activities way before I started any of the missions, which is the complete opposite of how I felt about them in the first game. So hats off to the developers for making the right amount of changes to the activities to make them fun to play. Now then, the strongholds. Well, to be honest with you, they're just the same as they were in the first game, a bit of filler. They're like little missions which you have to complete to unlock the final mission for each gang, and mainly consist of go here and take these enemies out, go here and destroy this, and I couldn't really remember many of them. I think one positive I can add is thanks to the very detailed world of Stillwater, a lot of them take place in some interesting places, like this one in a science museum and this one in a weird coliseum. But that doesn't change the fact that they still feel like they've just been added to the game to try and stretch out the missions a bit. Thankfully, there's not a lot of them, and they don't take too long to complete. Then there's the missions, and just like the missions in Saints Row 1, they're what you'd expect from this genre of game. But again, I think the thing that makes these fun to play is the actual world itself. You're going to find yourself in a lot of different locations throughout the game, like the caverns where you meet the Brotherhood for the first time, going to an underground lab run by Altor later in the game, and this epic showdown on the docks in the final mission of the Ronin campaign. Honestly, you kind of forget the fact that you're doing the same thing over and over again, because the locations are so different and they never get stale. Like one minute you're destroying a hotel and base jumping from the top as it falls apart, and the next you're pursuing enemies through an airport on one of those luggage buggy things. I never felt like the game was getting repetitive and boring, and had a lot of fun playing through it again. And also they added fucking checkpoints, which means no more driving to the mission to start over and over again, which is an absolute godsend, because sometimes this game can be a bit annoying and, well, broken. The perfect example of this is in the mission Kanto Connection, which sees you take on the Ronin's lieutenant in a sword fight. It's one of the best missions in the game thanks to its unique setup, but man, it is difficult to get the timing right when to counter. After a few attempts I decided to try and cheat the game, which I got punished for.
Fuck you! Christ, I've been waiting for a real fight. I hope you put up a fight. This is where you die. I hope you put up a fight. Huh? Yeah!
But then the very next attempt, this happened.
You just lost somebody! Damn!
I'll take you apart!
This has to be one of the most strangest string of events I've ever seen in a game, but hey, I'm not complaining because I was ready to fling my controller out the bastard window. All in all, the developers have managed to make every part of progression fun and enjoyable to play. This is probably the only game in the series I'd attempt to 100% and have fun doing it as well. The customization in this game takes things up to a whole nother level. Let's start with the character creation. It was pretty bare bones in the first game, but now not only can you choose between male or female, you can also make changes to the way your character acts in the personality tab. This includes things like the voice of your character, which means all the game's cutscenes have been voiced by 6 completely different voice actors, because let's face it, it would be a bit awkward if your character was still a mute, considering they're now the boss.
So what do we do now?
We listen.
There's a lot more to play with as well, like the walking animations, taunts and compliments, which are quite funny, fighting styles and even facial expressions. But now that you've made your character or absolute abomination, depending on your preference, how about the clothing options? While there are some new additions along the way, you can customise certain clothing, like adding logos, and the layer system is still there, but honestly, this is a slight nitpick. I think the clothing options are better in SR1. I think maybe because they had to make the clothing options for both male and female characters this time around, there's less variety, but yeah, it means most of the time my character walks around looking like an Asda Smart Price version of John Cena, with jean shorts to match. But there's a lot of crazy costumes you can buy also from the store, let's pretend. You can dress up like a ninja, pirate, and even a hot dog. But let's face it, what kind of sad low-life loser would dress up as a fucking hot dog? You can now also customise not only the way your gang looks and what cars they drive, but also your cribs around the city. It doesn't change the game in any way, but some of the apartments you can get after you customise them is crazy. It adds to the sense of progression and makes it feel like you're taking over the city, with penthouses, with helipads, and even a fucking lighthouse. They didn't really need to add this, they could have easily just have you buy cribs with preset decorations, but it's another thing that this game just does so well. Car customisation has also had a big upgrade, with a lot more options, not just in terms of cosmetic, but also performance wise too. Being able to make the cars a bit faster and tougher. Also, you can add these things to the car as well, which seems a tad cruel. Another big thing to add is that almost all land vehicles can now be customised, like quad bikes, burger vans, and even this thing. So you can literally have some of the strangest and wildest vehicles in your garage. And while I'm on the subject of vehicles, Saints Row 2 has over 125 of them. Not only cars like the previous game, but we now have motorbikes, helicopters, planes, boats, and everything in between, even a fucking UFO. It's a massive upgrade, and it makes the game a lot more fun and enjoyable to explore. When you only have access to cars, the map feels so small and closed off, but now you get to see the city of Stillwater from every angle. Similar to the vehicles are the weapons, with Saints Row 2 having almost double the amount of weapons to its predecessor. Most of the weapons return from the original, like the usual pistols, assault rifles and shotguns, but what they've added is a lot more unique options, especially the melee weapons and special options. The melee options now include things like samurai swords, stun guns and chainsaws, and even shock paddles to bring NPCs back to life. Then there's miniguns and flamethrowers, even satchel charges, to cause even more destruction around the city. And the craziness doesn't stop there. With cheats you can get weapons like the Pimp Slap, which is a foam finger which sends people flying, and the Pimp Cane, which is a super powerful shotgun disguised as, well, a pimp cane. And one more really important thing about the weapons is that the ammo is now bought separately, so no more sending yourself into debt when you need a bit of extra ammo. It seems everything has been improved in the sequel, from the weapons to the vehicle variety, the customisation options not only for your character but for your cars, crib and even gang. Saints Row 2 has so much to play around with, and I don't think much games in the genre come close to what it offers in terms of customisation. Now then, it's time to talk about the map, and yes, on the surface it is just Stillwater from the first game, but it has been expanded on in so many different ways. Let's start with the actual city itself. There have been a few new areas added to the map, with places like the university campus, the trailer park and the museum area I spoke about earlier. But on top of that we also get two new small islands, these being the prison and nuclear power plant islands. There's not much going on there, but they are still quite cool to explore, and they have their own little secret paths and hidden areas. The map on the outside has so much going on, but on the inside we have a lot of new places to explore as well. Things like the caverns on the south side of the map. I didn't realise just how big these are, you can actually get lost in them. And that's the same for the Saints hideout as well. When you go out to the hotel part, there's a mini town hiding underneath, which is used for a few missions, and also the zombie side activity, Zombie Uprising, which is also pretty fun to play. Then there's the science museum, which I've spoken about already, but it's still a pretty cool place to explore, and also the mountain near the stadium, which is home to its own creepy secrets. And let's not forget the sex doll dungeon under the cemetery. Yeah, this game has been out for 16 years, and I still don't know what this place is supposed to be. I could go on for hours talking about all the places you can explore and all the Easter eggs and weird islands you can find. Honestly, the dev team didn't have to go this hard when creating Saints Row 2's world, but I'm glad they did. There's so much going on and a lot to see. I haven't even spoken about the massive mall or the airport. This is what makes a great open world game. Yeah, it's not the biggest map on the surface, but inside there's a lot to see and do. And it is still the best map in the whole series, and I think I'm safe in saying every Saints Row fan will agree with me on that. We also have the radio stations, and yeah, I'm going to say it, Saints Row 2 has the best licensed soundtrack of all time, and I will die on that hill. Yeah, there are some great ones out there like Midnight Club 3, GTA Vice City, and Alvin and the Chipmunks on the DS. But Saints Row 2 has some absolute bangers. It's quite hard to talk about licensed music on YouTube, so what I've done is made a playlist of some of my favourite songs from the soundtrack, so you can go and check them out for yourselves. But let's start with the hip hop and R&B station K-Rhyme FM, which has classic hip hop tracks like New York State of Mind by Nas, Twins by Big Pun and Fat Joe, and other bangers from the likes of Young Jeezy, Beanie Siegel, Wale, Lloyd Banks and 50 Cent. We also get some R&B thrown in for good measure, like So Sick by Neo, which makes for the perfect drive-by music. That's just one station. If you want something a little more CEX worker, there's Gen X, with music from My Chemical Romance, Panic at the Disco and Paramore. There's also 420 Radio, which drops some absolute classics itself, with Heads High by Mr Vegas and Who Am I by Beanie Man, among others, and also songs from the likes of Avenged Sevenfold, Kasabian and LCD Sound System on other stations. And of course we have the 80s inspired Mix FM, with 80s pop classics like Take On Me, Out of Touch, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, among others. Honestly, just go listen to the playlist I've made, and if there isn't one song on there that you don't think is an absolute banger, then I don't know what to tell you. It's the greatest collection of music in a video game. It's just a shame they took out the MP3 player option to listen to the music on foot, because this is the game that definitely needed it the most. All the stores from the first game return with some new locations dotted around the map that relate to the locations, like gift shops for the university, caverns and museum, and Chinese restaurants with some totally legitimate Chinese dishes on the menu. You can also buy all the stores around Stillwater to increase the income you make, adding another level of completion to this already stacked game. Saints Row 2 still offers the best world to explore in the series, with a great map and tons to explore, and also an absolute banging soundtrack to listen to while doing so. It's taken me a while to get this video out, and honestly one of the main reasons why is because I just don't know how to get my point across of just how good this game is. It's a masterpiece. Yeah, looks wise it hasn't aged well and the gameplay is a bit dated, but in terms of what this game set out to do, which is to offer an insane, fun and crazy open world with a decent, sometimes gripping story to go with it, I don't think many games at the time or even after managed to do it on the level Saints Row 2 managed to do it on. The series definitely peaked here, and it's not hard to see why. If you've never played Saints Row 2 before, I seriously recommend it. Not only is it one of the best games in the series, I consider it one of the best games I've ever played. So that is it for the Saints Row 2 retrospective, and of course I've got to put it in the tier list. And Saints Row 2 goes straight into S tier. Not only does it go into S tier, I'm renaming it to the Saints Row 2 tier, because nothing else in the series comes close. The previous game was okay, the later games have things that they do better than this game, but Saints Row 2 is a complete package. I haven't even spoken about everything I wanted to speak about in this video, because this video would have been like an hour long. There's so many things I've missed out, like the cheats, and plenty of other stuff like the side missions and the side activities you can do. But yeah, it's just the perfect game. If you've never played Saints Row 2 before, I highly recommend it. I think even the PC port's okay, but yeah, you need to play Saints Row 2. It's one of the best open world sandbox games there's ever been. So yeah, Saints Row 2 is 10 out of 10. It's perfect. Deserves to be on the S tier in the tier list. And yeah, that's all I've got to say really. Of course I will be talking about Saints Row the 3rd in the future. I have some other videos I want to make as well, so I am going to start pacing myself a bit better with the videos now. I think it was just getting this Saints Row 2 video out of the way after going on holiday. It took a bit longer, but I'm going to get back into the routine of things now. I've got some good ideas for videos not related to Saints Row 2, some Tekken ones, some not Tekken ones. But yeah, I just want to say again a massive thank you to everyone who's watched the videos, liked them, and of course subscribed. Seeing people subscribe to my channel even though I haven't uploaded in 3 weeks, it's unreal to see people enjoying the videos so much. So just a massive thank you to everyone who's interacted with the channel in any way, shape or form. I really do appreciate it. But up next I will be looking at weird spin-offs and ports of the Tekken series on different consoles. So that's going to be a different sort of video. It's not going to be a review of any of them. It's just going to be a look back. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. So that will be up soon. Best way to keep up to date is to follow me on Twitter and Facebook. I'll leave links down in the description down below. And subscribe to the channel, turn notifications on, and you can keep up to date with what I'm doing on the channel. So yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you when I see you.